Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Retention Chronicles. Today, I am so excited for our guest that is joining us. Josh, thank you for making the time. Super excited to have you on here. This is actually the second time that you've come on the podcast. So I'm excited to talk all about that, get new learnings from you because it's been, I think you were on season one, if I remember correctly. So it's been almost a year now. Doesn't seem like it. I think actually way over a year. But yeah, super excited to have you. So thank you for making the time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so we're going to get started. In case anyone, hopefully you heard Josh's previous episode, but in case you haven't, would love to just kick off with your background, catch us up in what you've been doing for the past, I don't know, probably like more like a year and a couple months now, probably like 5 months or so. So that would be great to start with your background.
Yeah, I've had a really awesome experience here at Blueland. For those who don't know, Blueland is coming up on, I believe, just 4 years already in 2 weeks, launched in, I believe, 2019 on Earth Day. Really a brand focused on eco accessibility. So develop, truly innovative, refillable to start off cleaning products. So think cleaning sprays, hand soap, things like that when they ship to you are primarily water, right? And they are like, let's
Mm-hmm.
take the water out of the equation, let's develop this tablet form factor. And that was really the foundation of the business. Since then, was able to take that tablet form factor to other things like laundry and dishwasher. It's been really popular, and developed a really innovative powder based one as well for different products. And so they were on Shark Tank a couple seasons back, got a deal with Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary, which was very exciting.
Good old Mr.
And
Wonderful.
yeah, it's been off to the races ever since then. So yeah, really excited to be part of the team here. Currently the vice president of growth and digital product, focused primarily on our direct to consumer business, but also our more recently our Amazon business as well.
So fun, so much to dive into. I feel like too with just like tablet form of things, I've been seeing that. I don't know really when the shift was. I feel like it was probably around COVID of just like when a lot of D2C brands were like more on my radar and just like growth in general in the e-commerce space. But being able to see like all the little tablets and everything that you're able to do to like reduce just shipping water in these different mixes that we have and like plastic bottles is so fascinating to me. So I'm a big fan of Blueland, have it myself. Excited to dive into the details here, but I wanted to ask first, so how has it okay, so Blueland, um obviously like your mission is it, correct me if I'm wrong, is it like going eco has never been easier, right? Like you said, eco
Exactly.
accessibility, which is such like a great thing, and I want to dive into that. So can you tell us more about like the founding story? I know on social media your founder is like very involved. So just before we dive into things, can you give us like a little bit more background as to, like where that mission comes from, why it's important and whatnot?
Yeah. So yeah, we have two amazing co-founders, and they've really been focused on sustainability, plastic-free, eco-accessibility. And I know for our CEO in particular, it came about as she was having her first child. And as she was doing so much product research and just finding out so much, and plastic and microplastics being in literally everything.
Mm-hmm.
And just trying to, make sure she was, everything from the products she cleaned with, which is, top of mind for Blueland, of course, was doing the best by kind of her kid there. And so, yeah, where the founders have really positioned us and focused on is that accessibility component, right? So there are, several, lots of eco brands out there. And for them, the mission was really at the center. And they said, we want to make this, not something that takes all these extra steps or all these things that are a lot of extra work. We want to help make this for the mass consumer at a price point that is on most of our products competitive, with kind of a standard, CPG brand, and one that does not take a lot of effort. And so at the beginning for our main products, the whole mantra was fill, drop, clean. You put your
Mm.
water, from your tap water there, you drop in the tablet and it dissolves, you're ready to go. and something that doesn't require too much more effort, and one also that's quite effective. And so they really spend a lot of time on certifications of course, the materials of the product, but also the efficacy of the product tested by independent third-party labs versus kind of traditional CPG products.
Okay, that's really interesting. Like more of the product development and seeing like getting those certifications um to make sure like all the things that you're testing, all the quality of the product is there. And I also think it's really interesting and it seems timely as well, like having a kid and wanting to make sure that, all the things that you're exposing your child to and just like adults as well. Super important to make sure we're not exposing ourselves to anything that's harsh or any like toxins. And I think it's really interesting to see like because I think growing up, like I know I have the perception of like something has to be a really, really harsh chemical or toxin in order to be efficient. And I feel like we've started to see that change where it's like you don't need things to be like, almost like toxic waste or like need to be disposed of in a special way in order to have something that is very high quality, very sanitizing. Um, yeah, so it's interesting because I feel like I've seen more like at home remedies and like stuff like that where people are like there's a lot of natural or more natural better for you ingredients that you can be using to clean rather than all this stuff that is man-made and you know probably maybe not the best for us to be inhaling. And I feel like Blueland is finding that balance of like you said like new materials that are able to be tested, still really really efficient and better for you, better for the environment. Um, I think it's just a better direction to be headed in personally. And I know just from like when I use products that I feel better about for like myself and the planet, the experience is it it is just more pleasant to go through and like clean, which I don't know about you, Josh, but like cleaning, try and be really great about it. Sometimes not so much. It's hard to like block out some time to really 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 clean your apartment or your living space like every couple of weeks or so. But I think it makes it easier when there's less potential for harm like to yourself or to the environment.
Definitely, definitely.
So now I want to go into more of an educational piece. So we've been talking about the quality of Blueland products. Can you, and I think a big part of just the industry in general is educating like what those harsh chemicals might be, which ones you're not supposed to be exposing yourself to. And now that at least this is my how I would like describe is like now that it's becoming more important to the consumer, I see more brands, maybe more traditional brands who are recognizing that that's where the market is going, that's where consumers are caring about, and greenwashing products or like their branding and their messaging is like non-harmful or like all natural or blah 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 whatever the messaging is, but but the quality of the products isn't up to where you would want them to be. Like it's sort of misleading. So can you share with our audience about greenwashing and kind of your how you take that in the industry and then like how you see Blueland as being different from maybe following just the kind of the virality of greenwashing.
Yeah, yeah. So it's definitely something that's, I would say, always on our minds. And I think from the beginning, I didn't mention before, but we're actually a B Corp as well. And our founders have focused on everything, especially in the sourcing process and the way the products are made, and often making the more expensive or time consuming choices from a product development standpoint, to ensure that, these are not greenwashed products. And so, we had a really awesome campaign in Q4 of last year about PVA, polyvinyl alcohol. And so, when you are using, I won't name a brand, but a pod to do your laundry or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, or more recently, things that have been, perhaps viral are the sheets as well. Those contain PVA, and oftentimes the microplastics can from there kind of get into the water system. And so with that, we worked on an educational campaign in the midst of Q4 and all the craziness there, to educate people about it and also collect signatures for a petition for the EPA. And I'm trying to remember how many, we had tens of thousands, I think, of signatures. We blew past our early numbers on that. And I've been in
Awesome.
discussions with the EPA actually about, the importance of regulation, for things like this. And so we definitely try to be on the forefront and are very thoughtful in how we develop our, products. When we say plastic free and talking about our tablets, our refills, like there's truly, no plastic, and that is, legally verifiable, not something all the brands unfortunately take that level of transparency.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't know that you all were in active conversations with the EPA after getting those signatures. Can you, I mean, up to the level that you obviously can disclose, can you tell us more about just like why you want to make, why it's bad for microplastics, obviously, to get into our water system, how that affects our health and the planet's health, just like generally, in case someone is listening and isn't familiar?
Yeah, yeah. So definitely not as much my area
Mm-hmm.
of expertise there, but I think anecdotally, I think something a fact that I heard as part of this campaign that was stunning to me was that the average person eats a credit card's worth of plastic in,
Oh,
I want to say it's a week. I want to say it's a week. I'll triple check that one, but it's from those microplastics. Obviously, you're not eating, plastic
I
at any
hope.
given
Yeah.
time. And, you see it in, ocean life, the amount of microplastics or even larger plastics that are found in fish and things like that. And you're consuming all of that. And so, there are some studies on kind of the side effects and things from that. But I think we just tried as part of the campaign to also just visualize just like, all of those microplastics and everything kind of adding up,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
on you.
Yeah, that's perfect. I mean, I'm by no means an expert in the space as any like either. And so I think it's great to have a visualization. I feel like I've seen that as well. I can't remember and it might have honestly been on your page, but I can't remember how, yeah, the time period of like how much plastic is consumed or like that credit card visualization. But I know it kind of seems like out of this world because right, it's like one of those things that you can't see. You're like, you're not actively um eating plastic, right? So like to think about it in another way is kind of crazy. Okay, so I know we've been talking about just more of the importance, laying the foundation for why Blueland was started and what you all are doing. And so now I want to talk more about just the messaging in general. So like how you convey that um, to your base. And one of the things that I love, and we just did a case study with you all, so I was having fun creating quite literally graphics for the case study. But your imagery is so beautiful, right? It's like this light blue color, and you have all like glass containers, no plastic, goes back to that, and recyclable materials. And it's when I think of Blueland, like the fun D2C branding, right? Like very playful. So what's how do you look at when you're talking about growth and everything that you are specializing in? How are you looking at how that imagery plays into growth and appealing to your consumers?
Yeah, I would definitely say from a brand perspective, or from a marketing perspective, it was very brand first. And so, yes, most of our products have what we call forever vessels. So a forever
Mm-hmm.
spray bottle, forever pump for your hand soap, or a tin to hold your tablets for dishwasher, or things like that. And just about all of them are made out of, metal or glass. We have our spray bottles are actually Triton plastic. That was to ensure, minimize breakability with that one. But the whole thing is that you only get it once and you refill with the non-plastic refills. And so, yeah, making it an alluring product from the beginning was definitely, with the way it was positioned and branded, top of mind. And we want to make it something that people want to have. And so, whether you want to keep it out on your countertop or keep it out like some people do, for perhaps spray cleaners, but you think of like something like your hand soap. for instance. It's
Mm-hmm.
like that's obviously, very out and a key part of your decor as well. And so, since launching our original, we've come out with more than a half dozen different designs, from collaborations with artists to a collaboration with Disney, to specific designs that we made kind of based on some consumer research we did. And so at any given moment, we'll sell, several of those on the site. And so, yeah, I think across the board, tried to develop products that, people also, really want to use and are, good to look at, but also now as we expand further into retail, can stand out on the shelf as well.
Yes, yeah, I want to dive into that retail just in a second, but before then, so you said that you had some consumer research and that you had certain designs that were influenced. So I'm curious if you had to say, was it more like the look and feel of the products that consumer research was going into, or was it more of the like product design itself? Like, um, how, yeah, would you say that there was a difference in like terms of like, okay, like the marketing strategy perhaps behind the products or the actual design and like, yeah, like not look and feel because I use that for marketing, but like the actual product design of like how you're rolling out these new collaborations?
Yeah, I would definitely say both. If you take the product like hand soap, it was more, of course, we're looking for call outs on anything we can improve about the product. With foaming hand soap, the most difficult thing is obviously the pump itself.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, what kind of designs that people will be looking for. But then also, our most recent expansion was personal care mid last year. And with that was body wash and facial cleanser, and it was powder based and something we want to be really cognizant of in order to have it really fit within our mission is the accessibility piece. And so we didn't want it where you combine them and had to wait a long time or this or that. And so what the team really zeroed in on through consumer research was, I believe it was 10 seconds or less, it has to mix. And so you take
Mm.
the water, you take the powder and mix, and then all of a sudden you have a gel, just like a gel you would use for perhaps a standard more traditional body wash, and something that is accessible and easy but not something that's overly burdensome. And going back and forth with consumer testing but also the surveys to figure out kind of where that point was definitely really critical.
Yeah. Okay, that's really interesting because I don't think I thought about it so until now. Like I have the body wash and I remember like it was so easy, but when I'm going through the process of actually making it, like I'm not thinking like, oh, like what if this took so long? Like would I be bothered by it? Because it just wasn't even a thing, right? Like it was just
Yeah.
it was quick. So it wasn't one of those things that I really had to think of. So I'm kind of sitting here just digesting that of like how many iterations you might have went through to get to that point. How many things you're looking at where it's like, okay, we don't want it to take too long that someone would be deterred from using the product. So that's really interesting that you kind of landed through those surveys and customer research at like 10 seconds you want it to mix, which thinking about just from a like chemical standpoint, not knowing a ton, I'm sure there was like a lot of conversations internally with your team around how do we make sure that each part of the product is hitting and like part of that is like either getting a foam like getting a mixture to foam or to mix well um quickly. It would be super interesting to like see how, yeah, like the different iterations of product that you all must have went through.
Yeah, definitely a huge product development process, and definitely I think a huge unlock for the space as well. Combining those is, yeah, from I'm definitely not a scientist, but from our chief
Same.
innovation officer who literally is, yeah, the amount of prototypes and things that they had to go through to unlock this was insane.
Yeah, super interesting. Okay, well, thank you for entertaining that question. Now I want to dive more into uh getting into the retail space because obviously I know we were talking about the D2C side of the branding and it carries over into retail and just the brand in general. So very exciting. You all launched in Costco. Can you tell us more about that? I know you mentioned before we hopped on the call that you all now are nationwide. So give us the rundown on all the exciting stuff there, because who doesn't love Costco, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's definitely, has been on our radar for a while. And we did a test, I think mid late last year, and a small number of primarily California Bay Area locations. And we just kind of blew through the sales forecast. And we really wanted to prove that with Costco, it's a club channel. It's very focused on price and how can they get the best deal, developed a custom SKU at a really competitive and affordable price for them, and really just work to drive that sell through. And so expanded very quickly across regions. And now, yeah, really excited to be nationwide with them, with our toilet bowl cleaner, which has definitely been a runaway hit of a product across the board there. And yeah, it's really been incredible to see. And we've done everything from supporting with, perhaps our more traditional channels of email, SMS, and Facebook, to also working with influencers to activate it and drive awareness of our organic social. And then everything from, in-person demos by a mix of our own employees and staff and some third parties that we contracted with to really help drive home, the product, what a great deal it is, and how it's environmentally friendly. And actually, a fun fact was something we learned through that product was people were a little confused of where in the toilet you put the toilet bowl cleaner. It's just a tablet.
Interesting. Yeah.
And so we called it a toilet cleaner, and people were wondering, oh, you just put it like in the back of the toilet and it kind of just fizzles and dissolves. So you're supposed to put it in the bowl, just like you would, a standard cleaning product. So we actually renamed the product to toilet bowl cleaner across
Mm.
Costco and direct consumer and Amazon, and really worked as we update the packaging across the board to reinforce kind of where it goes and help to avoid additional consumer confusion on that.
Oh, that okay. I'm so glad you shared that because yeah, I wouldn't have like my first reaction is to use the product where like in the bowl where you all intended it to be used, but I could see like someone being confused um with like putting it in the back like the tank. I think
Yeah,
see where my
exactly.
knowledge extends to. So that's a really great example of how you got like used. So was it someone like in like just from the demos, the in-person demos, like people were confused there and then that kind of traveled from retail to D2C and across the brand?
Yeah, it was some feedback we've gotten before, but I think, we had everyone from our head of retail to our co-founders, both co-founders, I believe, to several employees working for like hours and hours and hours, and just the amount of anecdotes around that same point that they heard was just insane. And I think all of that together, everyone kind of got back and was like, okay, we really should take another look as we refresh packaging and things like that. Um,
Yes.
so yeah, another great consumer insights touch point.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, yeah. That's really interesting. That's such a good story, right? Because it's one of those things. I feel like when I've it doesn't come up a ton on this podcast, but when I talk to various guests that have found through consumer reviews or consumer research that something is confusing, it's one of those things where it's um grass is always greener, but hindsight is 2020, right? Where it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I could see how the numbers, if there's enough numbers to support a good chunk of consumers possibly being confused by this, then it's something you want to look into. Um, do you know anything? And I know this is more the retail side, but do you know anything behind like where your team was looking at numbers? Like how many people is like a great enough, a sizable chunk of people to like push this notion forward and change the branding versus like uh, deciding if it was more of a minority who might have been confused? Like, do you happen to be privy to any of that information?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know the exact number for this one, and it definitely was more, I would say, consolidation of anecdotes, but
Mm-hmm.
a fairly high quantity of those. And I think that, was something that I think the team was open to. It doesn't fundamentally change the name of the product or anything
Right.
like
Yeah.
Ultimately, like if we're trying to drive eco accessibility, but people don't understand how to use our product, it kind of defeats the purpose, or
Mm.
they use it and think it doesn't work because it's being used incorrectly. Like that's ultimately on us as a brand to fix. And so, yeah, I think something that was one of those cases where we try to be as data driven and quantitative as possible, but where qualitative data, once you get a certain amount, is incredibly helpful.
Yeah. And two, like that's one of those things that is harder to measure, I'm sure, especially as you're bridging like in person and um online, like trying to quantify that. If you're just, sometimes you just got to trust your gut with stuff like that, where you might not have the exact numbers that support something, but just to be like, I feel like this is just a tweak, right? Like it's not changing a lot. Probably very helpful and important in the long run. It makes a lot of sense. You also mentioned like supporting the retail experience through email and SMS and um like influencer online strategy, which I know is more in terms of what we've talked about in the past, just more of the area with online and D2C. So can you give us more details around like what that looked like if someone purchased with you? How like similar or dissimilar is the experience when you're buying in retail in store versus online e-commerce shop?
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey for that one, coming from a traditionally direct consumer business and having all the data and a lot more flexibility of controlling as much of the purchase process as possible. I think with this one, we tried to be smart of, whether it was at the beginning, when we were in a small number of more Bay Area locations, really being tight on geo targeting, being cognizant of cannibalization to our direct to consumer business, being cognizant of, same with if we're activating influencers, really also really tight on the geo side of that. And I think just trying to open it up as another possibility for someone. So, we want to be accessible in the way that you buy our product as well. For a lot of people, that's the direct consumer channel. And that's a subscription that you can get from our site, which has been hugely successful. Others, it's Amazon, as they build their broader carts, across the board. And for others, like my dad who goes into Costco, I want to say 3 times a week, he calls it the happiest place on earth. For him and all the many, many Costco shoppers, it's extremely convenient for them and accessible for them. And so, yeah, just tried our best to, expand there.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I feel like my dad would also say the same thing about Costco, that or Home Depot. I feel like we
Yeah.
always like grew up like my mom would be like, go take the kids, go take them to Costco, do the run, take them to Home Depot. More just entertaining. So definitely relate there. And it is fun. Like I'll go to Costco and you kind of make like an experience out of it. Which I was just talking about a previous guest or with a previous guest about like IKEA kind of the same way. Like it's like you can make a day out of it, right? So that makes sense. And I wanted to ask you as well. So I've heard that through D2C and e-commerce, you just get more details around the customer and can understand the journey a lot better than in retail. But in terms of growth strategies, and we can shift more into the e-commerce side of Blueland now. How are you thinking about when you're talking about like wanting to be accessible for everyone? How are you thinking about those growth strategies there? Like cross sell, upsells. What's your approach at Blueland to like how you're trying to expand that customer base?
Yeah, yeah. So I think for us, we've expanded pretty rapidly into a lot of, different categories or subcategories. We launched focused on cleaning sprays, and then very shortly after is hand soap. And since then, other things that have come out are, laundry, including Oxy Booster, dishwasher, but also kind of more countertop dish soap, the toilet bowl cleaner I mentioned as well, and most recently the personal care line. And so with that, we have a lot of opportunity for
Mm.
cross sell. So, some of our most popular SKUs for new customers are those that are, the kits or the combinations to help get a sense of, which products they'd like. Our Clean Essentials kit has been our bestseller, or one
Mm.
of our bestsellers for a long time, which is our cleaning sprays and hand soap. And then from there, it's really our job to figure out how much cross category penetration we can drive. And so whether that's on the initial purchase, upfront bundling, and being cognizant of everything from free shipping minimums to how we merchandise the site to our subscription program to post-purchase, driving awareness of the other categories that they may not be aware of, and working to, encourage that, perhaps on that second purchase, expanding categories, because, in all direct consumer businesses, shipping is one of the largest expenses by far. And when you're able to increase that box size, another couple items, another 10, 20, whatever dollars, that's where the unit economics get, exponentially better for the business. And so that's where we focus on as well of, each of these products will help reduce one's plastic consumption, across the board in their respective categories. And we have some, what we would call maybe dark green customers who will, subscribe, be across all the categories and buy a tremendous, tremendous amount. And then some that are more kind of light green or perhaps earlier in their eco journey, cognizant of their eco impact, but perhaps not buying, eco everything or not as clear where to start. We want to also be there for that customer. And so, yeah, really driving the awareness and the cross sell across our different categories has been really critical for us.
Yeah, that's super interesting. We haven't had a guest come on and talk about like just the shipping logistics of wanting more products per box to make a more efficient sale or to make a more efficient like shipping logistics, saving on gas and plastic or not plastic, but packaging.
Yeah.
Is there kind of like a magic number to that, or is it really just more products in a box is better? Like I'm not privy to, like certain box sizes and what weighs more and all that stuff. But I'm curious about it. Do you happen to know where that breakdown is?
Yeah, it varies by brand, but for us, I'll give an example. Our shipping minimum is now $45. And so shipping minimums in general tend to bump up your average order value quite a bit. It's usually your strongest tool in the arsenal there. And that we did increase it to 45 early last year and saw AOVs increase as well. But I think you see this across the board. I think you saw Amazon Fresh. I was a huge Amazon Fresh customer, especially during COVID. They had a free delivery fee for so long. And then all of a sudden now they started phasing in delivery fees at certain bounds. Same with, GoPuff, which is big in New York and in some cities. Same with DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub, all of those. Each one has its magic number. I think for a lot of those companies, it's like $20 for like a DoorDash or something. It's usually higher for, a direct consumer brand. But there is that point where it just makes an exponential difference to your bottom line as a business. And you need to think about, balancing that. And at the same time for us, we're also happy to, ship less packages to people. A big initiative we have right now is, our subscription program has been so successful. We sometimes have people who, start off with a subscription to our laundry tablets and then start a subscription for toilet later. And now they're receiving two different packages, sometimes at two different times. It's like, how can we consolidate that, further our eco mission, but also drive cost savings? And so those are kind of a lot of initiatives that we think across the board. And it's really nice because it's a really nice overlapping Venn diagram for our mission, but also for what's best for the business. And we always talk about building, we're a business focused on sustainability, but in order to fulfill that mission, we also need to be a sustainable business in how we manage our unit economics.
Yes, I love that. That's a fun way to draw like distinction between having your eco initiatives and then also having your strategic initiatives to help the business and like help continue or help to further what you all are doing so that the business sticks around so that you can continue to do so. That's a great point around someone, you gave the laundry and I think it was a personal care example, but whatever products that someone is using, the subscription buying experience with, how are you just like looking at are you using like a technology to try and consolidate those can you tell us more about that? Because that's also been something that hasn't come up before on this podcast. So can you give us more of like the tactical um, approach that you're using?
Yeah, yeah. And I'll say the other side of the balance, which is really interesting, is everyone wants really high repeat customer rates.
Mm.
And they want to see, okay, how are these cohorts maturing at month 3? How many customers have purchased month 6, whatever. And all of these other factors affect that. So if you sell more upfront, chances are it's going to take them longer to repeat, but your initial average order value will be higher. Same with kind of subscription. It's like, well, you're going to see more spikes on certain cadences. Like for us, 3 months is our default on that. And so, the technology side is something we're working with one of our partners, Recharge, who powers our subscription, on figuring out. It's something that we're close to and I think should roll out this quarter, but we've also done other steps such as, several months back, eliminated 1 and 2 month subscriptions because the cost of sending that, every month or every 2 months was quite significant. And we would much rather send, a little more product, a little less frequent. And so send enough product, and frequent enough that we're definitely on people's minds and we're able to fulfill, their refill needs, but also, be cognizant of, when you send so often as well, the cost is really astronomical. So yeah, a mix of our data systems to identify how big the opportunity is, and then working with our technology partners on rolling that out.
Yeah, I'm glad you answered why why the 3 months was the smallest, or whatever you said, the default subscription cadence, because I was curious. I was like, I wonder if you've done more consumer research or if it was more towards the strategic approach to it just makes more sense and is more cost efficient as to why you have that 3 month cadence. And two, I feel like one of the things that when we talk about subscriptions is like trying to find that balance between when someone needs more product, but like not being overwhelmed by a subscription as well, because I feel like some people are always going to want subscription, diehard subscription consumers. Some people are not. Like you said, there's the repeat purchasers who just like to have a more active buying experience where they're choosing when and where and how much product they're getting. And then there's like, I feel like a lot of people who are maybe not die hard on like either side, where they're like, oh, some things I like having a subscription for, some things I like choosing when and where I get the products. So I feel like 3 months, because usually it is a month to month basis for subscription, 3 months, it makes sense from wanting to still be at the top of someone's mind, where it's like, okay, they're on our subscription, we want to make sure that they know they're on our subscription plan, and having that branding and that product be there, but then also wanting to make sure that you all are doing what makes sense in like the best ways, the most amount of ways possible. And so that's really interesting to hear, that you went from having like the 1 and 2 month options to now using 3 months as your default.
Yeah, it's been an interesting one, and I think you want to offer consumers choice, but you don't want to drive too much decision fatigue. So it's always a balance there. I come back to my time when I was at Quip, the oral care company, and for them, we luckily had ADA guidance, American Dental Association guidance, which was you're supposed to replace your bristles every 3 months. And so it kind of was default. So we can rely on their guidance, and they built everything around that quarterly subscription. And so for us, it was interesting because we had so many options, and we're continuously trying to figure out how can we, narrow it enough so people are, get it. We base these off of our usage data that we have from, a tremendous amount of customers, but also, often in the flexibility. If you subscribe, you can delay, you can skip, you can do all that stuff. And so, how can we narrow it in and try to offer the best experience we can?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think we got on this topic by talking about cross sells and upsells and catering to your buyer's experience. And I think that makes a lot of sense what you're saying. You want to find that flexibility with how someone likes to purchase. And I see the value, obviously. I mean, we talk about it a lot on here, of just catering to if someone's a subscriber, if someone's a repeat purchaser. And I know a big part of that is the post purchase experience. So I would love to dive into that more, because I know obviously you can segment the experience based off of what kind of consumer you have. So can you walk us through kind of the experience that someone could expect based off of if they're a subscriber or if they're a repeat purchaser with Blueland, like what that journey looks like?
Yeah, and that's something in the last 6 to 12 months we've really worked to differentiate. And so, yeah, historically we were effectively a subscription business in the fact that we are refillables, and a lot of people treated it like that. To your point, there's always a subsection. We offer bulk, where it's like they like coming back for bulk, don't like being opted into subscriptions. And we've worked now over time, continuously trying to improve the kind of segmented user journeys. And so for those who do not opt into subscription, we do try to gently push them towards it after purchase. Those who are in subscription, try to drive, additional cross sell on the subscription, make them aware kind of fully how it works. And for us as well, I remember something last year, we are selling multiple countries. We have multiple shippers, and we've also shifted, to which kind of shipping companies that we contract with. And some definitely have, let's say, less appealing experiences than others. And that's obviously where, Malomo got started here. And for us, the timing actually was quite perfect because we were migrating kind of to a different shipping partner at the same time that the entire team was extremely worried about how that experience would be for our customers. That was, I think, about the month I joined. And so that's where we really brought Malomo in as well as this kind of gives us the best of both worlds. We give them that, branded experience that they would expect from Blueland. For us, we really focus on the how it works piece for our different products. And now we're working to help, differentiate it even more to have more diverse content for subscription versus one time, and help make it feel like a more and more personalized experience as well. Because all the retention touch points are just so critical, whether it's driving awareness of new products, collecting customer feedback, anything like that. It's you really take that amount of attention and try to utilize it as best you can.
Yeah, yeah. And I would say too now, like it was so funny with the timing that you brought up. Like I think it worked well, obviously, with you joining the Blueland team and being familiar with Malomo and seeing hopefully, I mean, the importance of the space and just from a consumer standpoint that you have so much attention that while someone is waiting for their package, right? Like they're actively eager to have the product at their front doorstep. So it makes sense that you want to capitalize on that attention and also further what your brand stands for and what the product itself can be used for. And I know like a big part of, and we were talking about this with the toilet bowl cleaner example of like educating the customer and making sure that when the product arrives, you know how to use it so that you can hopefully avoid someone, maybe misusing it and not seeing the value in the product because they're like, this is not working, even though it's not how the product is supposed to be used. So what would you say? So we talked about segmenting the experience and I think gently is a great word. And from what I've seen, gently making someone aware that you have a subscription program that if they want to go that route, they can, up to the consumer, of course. But what are you trying to show to your customers in addition to, the programs that they can be involved with while shopping with Blueland? What else are you sharing like on your branded tracking page, in addition to like education around how, your products work?
Yeah. So definitely that education piece. I believe kind of connecting to our blog a lot. We actually some of our blog pages are some of our most highly trafficked pages, shortly after some of our shopping ones, that really dive in, into some very, specific eco topics or ones that are just kind of home hacks or things like that. Try to, showcase those to people. And yeah, we have definitely a lot of navigation back to our site, and then as well as our kind of chat bot. automated chatbot on there as well. And so definitely on our minds to continuously improve that, the rest of our full digital product experience. But yeah, definitely, feel that it is one of our retention channels. There's only so many effective retention channels out there. And so we're really excited to partner and to continue, I think, to utilize that and, continue to bring it tighter and tighter across the board, into our full retention structure there.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, we love working with you, and your team are awesome as well. So I feel like we have to reciprocate that. Super excited for the partnership. I know I feel like there's just a lot of innovation in the space in general, but especially with our partners of just being able to like think through different things and be like, oh my God, what if we like put this on or like include this new blog post, which you said, are highly trafficked, or like what is this perhaps this tweak that we can make that would make a difference. Playing around with all those things is so exciting, and why I imagine we're both sitting here. So I know we're coming up on time. I have one more question for you. What is one thing now, you've been through the process twice of implementing Malomo, of recognizing the space and having it be a part of your retention strategy. So I was curious to hear, just because we haven't had someone who's now come through the podcast twice, like what's something you've learned through going through the process twice? Like what's something maybe looking back a couple years or a couple months, something that you now know that you wish you might have known earlier?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I know I'm putting
Um,
you on the spot,
uh,
making you work those last couple minutes.
I think a lot of brands inevitably have a lot of systems.
Mm,
We have dozens of MarTechs, platform partners, and most other brands do as well. But I think the integrations and tying them together are critical. And so for us, as we work to pull in all of our emails, and that includes transactional emails from Shopify, that includes emails from Recharge or subscription partner, and get everything consolidated in Klaviyo, having that visibility and the flexibility is so huge. And the sooner you do it and the more visibility you have, you can optimize them to a certain
mhm,
extent, and learn from the customers. A lot of those time, those emails are kind of essentially locked in Shopify. You don't really get analytics. You have the default thing, it looks fine. You don't really need to worry about it. But, you don't learn that a small tweak to a subject line or, perhaps updating the footer or a few other things can drive incremental clicks to your website and, potentially incremental purchases as well. And so, on the Malomo front, it was really interesting to see, also just how the platform has evolved. And so, now with the kind of more self-serve tools and things that you
mhm.
offer, especially for Shopify merchants, you can get a V1 up incredibly quickly, very, very quickly. One of the faster, definitely, implementations of any MarTech partner that I've worked on. And so the ease of it and getting that V1 and then being able to work on it and evolve it over time is really, really cool. And I know our lifecycle team is especially a huge fan of the problem orders and
Mm,
how Alomo's taking a really thoughtful approach to those and helping empower brands like us to make sure that those customers, are informed and have as, good of an experience despite everything, as possible in surfacing that. And so I know that's something we've been really excited to be a part of on the beta side and work to expand as well.
yes, yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. That makes me very happy to hear. Yeah, launching problem orders couple months, maybe yeah, a couple months back was very, very exciting just on our front getting to go to market with it. But I'm very happy to hear that. Thank you for sharing. I know I put you on the spot, so you crushed that. But this has been an absolute pleasure to have you back, Josh. Hopefully we'll get to continue to do it again and continue to iterate. But thank you for making the time today to do so.
Yeah, always enjoy our discussions. Thanks, Mariah.